Hello and welcome. Today we're going to explore the major scale. It is basically the fundamental scale of all Western music, the kind of music that we listen to. So it's a very important scale musically, and it's a good finger exercise as well, especially for beginning guitar players. So this is going to follow along with a lesson on my website called Major Scales 101. First, we're going to talk about the mechanics of the scale, how to play it, and then we'll talk about the structure of the scale. In other words, what's going on kind of underneath the hood kind of thing. So let's start with the mechanics. So first off, as far as fingering, we're going to play this A major scale in the fourth position. Well, what does that mean? Fourth position is simply where your first finger is. So I'm going to place my first finger on fret 4, and I'm going to leave it there. So I'm going to play this entire scale in the fourth position without moving my hand. Do this for me, please. Put your first finger on fret number 4, leave it there. Put your second finger on fret number 5, right behind the fret. Put your third finger right behind the fret on number 6 if it doesn't hurt. And if it doesn't hurt, put your last finger, your fourth finger, on fret 7 right behind the fret. So this is a good stretch. If you're a beginning guitar player, this probably will not be comfortable. If you're someone like me, we've been doing it a while, so it doesn't really matter. But this is a great way to stretch your hands out. Let's say you're doing nothing. You're sitting around watching TV and you want to improve your guitar playing while you're doing nothing. Well, this is a good way to do it. And you could do it anywhere on the neck, really, anywhere. And a little aside note, you should be able to stretch that finger down 1 and stretch this finger up 1. That's good. And that'll help you in your playing a lot. That means you can cover all the notes across the fretboard. Anyway, let's get back to this major scale. So our first note on the major scale is A, which is being played with our second finger on the 5th fret. The next note is B, which is the 7th fret. We're going to play with our other pinky. Then we have a big stretch to C sharp on the next string with our first finger. Then we have D with our second finger. Then we have E with our fourth finger. We're going to do that big stretch again. Go to first finger on G string. Third finger on G string, which is G sharp. I forgot to tell you the notes. F sharp, G sharp. And then we're going to end on A. That distance from A to A is an octave. So this is our A major scale, the first of 2 octaves we're going to learn in this lesson. Now the second scale we're going to learn in this lesson is A major scale in the next register or the next octave. So we'll start here where we just ended our first one on that note A. Now a big stretch. First finger, that's B. Third finger is now C sharp. Fourth finger is D. Second finger is E. Fourth finger is F sharp. First finger is G sharp. And then end on A for your second octave. Octave. O-C-T, oct, octopus, octave, octagon. 8 notes in most scales in Western music. Not all, but most scales have 8 notes. So the distance from the beginning note of 8 notes to the octave, and that's why we call it an octave. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. We also think about that. Now in the lesson, the 2 octaves are written in one sequence. So it would sound like this. It's a fine way to practice it. Some people like to put a break in between. In other words, play 1 octave and then the other. I'll demonstrate that, and you can practice this any way you like, whatever suits your fancy. So, there was my first octave. Now I'll play my second one. And then descending also is on that page on the bottom, the tab and the music for it. Now, some people say that scales aren't musical. I strongly disagree with that statement. As an example, here's a melody that we all know and love. which is simply your A major scale played backwards with a little bit of timing change instead of just going bop, 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 bop. So, as I mentioned on here on the lesson, you want to play these with an even tempo. You want to get right behind the fret on every note because you're playing single notes, and that's the best place to find consistency on your notes. Consistency. Right? You want to have good tone, and that's how you get it. Fingers right behind the fret. And also even volume. You don't want to be going. Yeah, you could if you like. It's fine with me, but you'd be better served being more consistent. So that's enough of the mechanics on the scale. Let's move on to how the scale is built. We'll kind of take a quick look under the hood and see how this thing works. So the musical alphabet, it goes from A to G and starts over again. So we went from A to A, and this is a major scale, and there was A, and then we start over again, A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, A, like that. So it's a sequence of notes. It is also a sequence of whole steps and half steps, and that's what's important. So a half step on the guitar is just one fret. As is a half step on the piano. Half step on the piano is just one note to the next note. So here we have our first note is called, a root. That's the note that the scale is built on. We refer to the notes within the scale as degrees. So our second degree, or our second note in the scale, notice is 2 frets up from the first note. So we call that a whole step. So in terms of steps, we have a half a step, which is 1 fret, and we have a whole step, which is 2 frets. And the major scale is simply a combination of half steps and whole steps. Again, that's half steps and whole steps. So let's look at that. We're going to play our root, followed by a whole step, followed by a whole step, followed by a half step, followed by a whole step, followed by a whole step, followed by a whole step, ending with a half a step. It's kind of hard to see going across the guitar, but let's do it going up and down the guitar. We'll move over here a little bit. So here on the A string, there's our A, same note as that one. So we're going to go A, doesn't matter what finger you use, by the way, up a whole step, up a whole step, up a half step, up a whole step, up a whole step, up a whole step, end with a half step. So that was your octave. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And notice, oh, that was bad. Because the phone rang, sorry. Just like that. Now I can do that on any string. I'll get the same results. Because it's the same sequence of steps. Root, whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. I'll do it on G string. Root, whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. Well, you can also do that, and this is at the end of the lesson, by moving the first note in our example that we learned earlier in the lesson. So here's A, and if I play that pattern from A, I get an A major scale. Here's G. Now if I play the same pattern, I get a G major scale. Here's B on the 7th fret. If I play that, I have the B major scale, up a half step to C, here's a C major scale. Whole step up from there to D, here's a D major scale. Same one that we just played on the open string. Same thing. Just easier to play because it's all in one, what do we call that? Position. It's a good thing once you have your fingering down, practice the scale all over the guitar. Down here, the frets are a little wider apart. You have your hands stretched out a little. It's a little harder to do. Up here, your frets are closer together, and the angle of your hand is a lot more conducive to playing. Doesn't have to stretch it much. So, anyway, again, the major scale is the foundation of all scales. If I just alter one note in the major scale, being the third note, if I alter the third note of the scale, that's a minor scale. There are a few different minor scales, but they all share the same third degree, which is flatted. In other words, that was our major scale. Notice the sound of the third note. Now here's our minor scale in the same 5 notes. And that's minor, a little sadder thing. Oh, so sad. And when we extend this to chord construction, a major chord is built of the first, third, and fifth notes of the scale. So here's a major chord built on that same A that we played the scale on. Here's the third note of the scale, C sharp. So that's an A major chord. If I change that C sharp note to a C natural, now I have an A minor chord. So major, kind of happy and uplifting. Minor, not so happy, not so uplifting. So that will do it for our lesson on major scales. I hope you enjoyed it. And as we make more videos, I hope you come back for more. Thank you so much for hanging out. See you next time. Bye-bye.